24 Ast, as we hear from the team radio.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go, go.
So cars heading out early, and a big opportunity at this midway point of the season to make an impression on the championship this weekend. They follow the usual pattern of this free practice 1 session. They'll be going for quick single lap pace in the early part of the session, the first 10-15 minutes of the session, and then after that they'll be concentrating on longer run paces. They try to set the cars up and see how the tyres work and what the degradation levels are like around this circuit during a longer run as they get set for the 2 55-minute plus 1 lap races that we'll have over the course of the weekend. So a new experience this for the DTM, because it's the first time that the DTM has used the full Grand Prix layout of the circuit. They normally run on the sprint version, which is significantly shorter. That's only 3.6 kilometres long. This version of the circuit is 5.148 kilometres long and gives you generally longer corners, harder braking areas. You get the Dunlop hairpin. You get the Schumacher S section as well, which the drivers have been really excited about tackling. Expecting to take that flat out in these cars. René Rast, the 2-time and reigning champion, the driver of the current grid that has the most race wins in the DTM, but was only able to get a couple of 5th place finishes last time out at Assen. Decent points, but losing ground to Robin Freins, who overtook him for 2nd place in the championship, and of course losing ground to Nico Muller, the championship leader as well. It wasn't an especially good weekend for Marco Vittman, who had been really performing as well as he could in the BMW in the opening rounds. An excellent drive to pick up 3rd place, wreaking every last fraction of a second out of the BMW in the first weekend at the Lausitzring. But it's been a little while now since he was on the podium, the 2-time champion. But it has certainly not been all bad news for BMW. Of course, they've taken 2 race wins now after a long streak of victories for Audi, which had spanned back to the middle of last season at Brands Hatch, where Marco Vittman was a race winner. They started the season by dominating in terms of race wins and podiums, and certainly in qualifying, Audi having the edge. But the weather has come into play and strategies have come into play, and we had the first victory of the season for a BMW and a 5th career victory for Lucas Auer in the previous weekend to Assen at the Lausitzring. And then in race 2, we had a maiden victory for Sheldon Vanderlinder from way back on the grid, 14th on the grid. Such a superb drive in changeable but largely wet racing conditions. And Sheldon, who had to withstand quite a bit of pressure after the race was red flagged and a restart for 10 minutes or so, drove beautifully, and the South African then making it 2 wins out of 3 now for BMW, but they do lag a long way behind in the brand standing still. And generally, when the weather is fair and dry, as it is here at the Nurburgring, and you can't always say that about the Nurburgring. We get very changeable weather here. I've been here in the past at the 24-hour race where we've started the race like this, and an hour later it's been hailstorms and huge amounts of rain, so it can be extremely hard to predict here. But at the moment it's an absolutely beautiful day, a beautiful drive. I flew into Frankfurt, and the last hour of the drive from Frankfurt this morning is absolutely beautiful, gorgeous countryside and undulating landscapes on the way into this part of Germany. And then you have the thrill for the last 10 minutes or so of the drive to the Grand Prix circuit of being able to see various sections of the Nordschleife, which of course has been used for taxi rides and personal track use during the day. So it's always a thrill to come here. Audi arrive here with 543 points now in the brand standings. BMW on to 242. Despite the victory, or the victories that they've had, it's Audi that have scored the most points out of each race, with the best 4 placed drivers from each brand, the ones that score the points for the brand championship. Audi dominating the team standings as well. Audi Sport Team Abt Sportsline, who run Robin Freins and Nico Muller, the top 2 in the championship. They've got 302 points. They've scored more points than any other team in all but one race so far this season. We've got 302 points, second, but back on 167 at Audi Sport Team Rosberg, who ran Jamie Green and the reigning champion René Rast, and then third in the standings. The local team to this circuit actually drove past the base to Team Phoenix, which is only less than 10 minutes away from the circuit entrance. And Audi Sport Team Phoenix, the local team here, 123 points, third in the standings. RMG are the best of the BMW squads, fourth on 106. There is Jamie Green, who started the season well after the first weekend at Spa. It was all looking good, and he ran in second place in the standings early on, but had a very disappointing weekend at Assen, which started when the car failed to get off the line for the green flag lap in race 1 with a battery problem, then putting him effectively out of the race. He did get back into the race eventually 14 laps later, but to no avail. And then race 2 wasn't particularly kind to him either. In fact, Assen over the last 2 seasons hasn't been that kind to Jamie Green. He's now fallen back to 8th place in the standings. No points for him last weekend, so he needs to have a couple of really good weekends here to get himself back into the mix, as we very much know that the British driver can. René Rast has come back in as Jamie Green, his teammate, goes out. Mike Rockenfeller, who's got 3 weekends on the trot here at the Nurburgring and loves this place. The Team Phoenix, or one of the Team Phoenix drivers, has come back in. And of course, Team Phoenix celebrated a podium finish with Loic Duval getting a second place finish, teammate to Mike Rockenfeller last time out. So some good performances for Jonathan Aberdeen, who you've just seen there as well, the South African. And there is number 4, Robin Freins, having a tyre change. Sheldon Vanderlinder, now a race winner in the DTM and 2-time podium finisher, heading out in his BMW. Ferdinand von Habsburg in the 62 car. Harrison Newey, Robin Freins, and there, 4th in the queue, the red, yellow and white Shell Helix branded BMW. You know, on board with him is Sheldon Vanderlinder, who has said he is absolutely full of confidence, full of energy, he said, as he comes here this weekend now as a race winner.
Go, go, go. We don't expect cars on the track when you come out. It's out build, 3 push and then in.
Copy.
So build up lap, 3 hard push laps and then come in is the plan. As we look at Sheldon Vanderlinder.
Copy.
Last year at the Nürburgring, albeit on the different version of the circuit, we had wins for René Rast in race 1, and in race 2 it was Jamie Green, who I've already been talking about, that took what was his most recent race victory, his only win of the 2019 season. It was a good weekend for Jamie, actually. He had a 6th place in race 1, and he was the winner of race 2. Other drivers to make it onto the podium last year here were Mike Rockenfeller, who had a 2nd and a 3rd. We had a 2nd place finish for Marco Vittman. It was a double podium for René Rast. I mentioned his race win. He also got a 3rd place finish here in the 2nd race.
You ahead 8 seconds. Jonathan behind 3 seconds.
Probably also worth mentioning that pre-season there was a test day here at the Nürburgring.
There's a bigger gap for Jonathan behind, so he can back off a bit. Remember, there's Freins and Newey. They will split open a bit, so don't get too close to Newey.
All about trying to get track position, give yourself clear run here. Sheldon Vanderlinder making his way out of turn 12. Bilston Curver towards Adrian Bogan he goes, as Nico Muller is about to head back out onto the circuit and have his push laps now at the start of this session. First time on the board is Timo Glock with a 1 minute 54.149 second lap. That pre-season test at the Nürburgring, the fastest. There are various sessions over a 3-day period, sorry, a 4-day period. The fastest time of the whole period was set by Ferdinand Habsburg, so he'll be hoping to go well here. Nico Muller was 2nd quickest, and René Rast was 3rd. We had lots of different drivers topping lots of different sessions. Rast topped a couple of sessions, Habsburg topped 3 sessions, and Philipp Eng and Mike Rockenfeller also, in particular on day 1, went well around the Nürburgring. Robert Kubica, who's now a point scorer in the DTM after picking up a 10th place finish at the end of race 1 at Assen just, what, 6 days ago. He is the 2nd driver to post a time, but it's significantly slower than the driver that you're looking at, the car hopping and bouncing and skipping over the tarmac. Timo Glock on the start of the lap, making his way through the right-hander at Yokohama into the Mercedes arena. back in 2001 that the DTM last used the full version of the Nürburgring circuit, but it was a different layout then. You didn't have sections like this, the Mercedes-Benz Arena, so it's a bit of an adventure for the teams and for the drivers. No precise data to fall back on, therefore expect a couple of very busy free practice sessions. René Rast has just gone through with a 1 minute 53.5, but that again is not even close to Timo Glock's 1 minute 48. 5 seconds or so slower as they build up speed. It's going to get quicker and quicker. Glock is a 10th under his own best lap of the session so far, as he makes his way through the first timing beam through sector 1. That first sector, 50 seconds long. It's the longest of the 3 sectors. On board with Timo now. Back to brake for the left-hander at turn 11, the Ravenel curva, then into the Bilstein curva, turning right through there, and then he gets really quick out the back now, accelerating up towards Ad van Bogen. Steep uphill climb here as well on this undulating circuit. Flat through the right-hander there at Ad van Bogen. Coming up to the chicane now, heavy on the brakes for Vidal chicane, as Timo Glock makes his way through turns 14, 15 and 16. Going quicker than anybody so far. René Rast is now pushing hard on his lap as well through that first sector. So 50.074 seconds through sector 1 for Glock. The second shorter sector is 38.5 seconds, and Glock through the third sector, 19.6 seconds. The combined lap time is 1 minute 48.272. So that's the early target time to beat. Kubica's put a 1 minute 50.4 in, so he's second at the moment, with Jonathan Aberdeen third, 1 minute 52.881. But the times are going to change pretty rapidly over the next few minutes. Rockenfeller, Rast and Green all on push laps currently, but it's BMW 1, 2, 3 in the early stages of the weekend, which they'll enjoy seeing. Habsburg, the best of the Audis, currently in 4th place, Rast 5th, and Rockenfeller in 6th place. Rast is actually aborting the lap and heading for the pits instead. So we'll track Mike Rockenfeller's progress for the rest of this lap. Get a personal best through the first sector. He's about to go through over the grid hatchings and into 5th place with that one. Jamie Green has gone over the line with a 1:49.630 to go second. But that's still 1.4 seconds away from Timo Glock, who's the only driver really to go out there very early and push very hard as early as he can. Robin Freins, though, goes second now with a 1:48.645. Second fastest. You're on board with Marco Vittman, who started the lap very well. Absolute best through the first sector, 50.028 seconds. So this is looking like it might put him to the top of the times if he can keep up the pace throughout the session, throughout the rest of the lap. Glock, Freins, Green, the top 3 currently. Kubica 4th, Aberdeen 5th, Vanderlinder 6th. Marco Vittman, absolute best through the second sector as well, 38.472. He goes on the attack. Remember, a race winner at this venue last year, albeit, as I say, on a different version, different layout of the circuit, the sprint version of the circuit. Accelerating hard now out of the final right-hand turn, the Hyundai end curva, to go over the line and indeed to go to the top of the times. 1 minute 48.113 seconds. Lovely lap that from Marco Vittman. Dearly love to start getting back to winning ways here. It's been more than 12 months now since his most recent race victory. Habsburg on a flyer as well, absolute best in the first sector. Only a few hundreds quicker through sector 1, but it was quicker, 50.015 seconds. Timo Glock improved his lap, but didn't go quicker than Vittman, so he's a 1:48.272. Freins 1:48.645 third, and Philip Eng's gone 4th with a 1:48.829. Philip's pace has sort of flattered to deceive a couple of times this year, where he's been very strong looking on single lap pace and on his longer runs in the free practice sessions, but it hasn't quite fallen his way come the races and come qualifying in particular, where I think he's struggled. The race pace has been pretty good, but qualifying, he's never quite been where you think he might end up after the free practice sessions. Habsburg through with a 1:53.113, so backed off in the end on that lap, but it started well for him. You're riding now with Sheldon Vanderlinder. It's just outside the top 10, but has had personal bests in the first 2 sectors. Going through now, past the commentary box window, and his best lap of the session so far puts the BMW man into 8th place. And the M4 for Team RBM. So BMW's first and second, Audi's third, fourth and fifth now, with Loic de Waal crossing the line to go into the 1:48s, 1 minute 48.654. Rockenfeller in sixth. Engi's still out there, but doesn't look like he's about to improve on this lap.
To be fine, so might be a sensor issue.
Okay, so that explains why René Rast aborted his lap.
Okay, wir tanken.
They have a slight issue. Might be a sensor issue, they're saying. Whether that's related to the tyres, which are just being checked, the front right being checked. But it seems like that isn't actually a problem. It might just be a sensor that's been incorrectly triggered off an alarm somewhere. But they are checking out the car, so that was why René never really put a proper flying lap in. And why? Take a photo of this. You see him 15th at the moment. Very often that happens, is it? But it's only because he never got to put the flying lap in. And that's the cockpit of a modern-day DTM car. There's lots going on, isn't there? Lots for the drivers to try and absorb here. Not just when they're driving, but in between the sessions as well, with all the data traces that they get to look through. So 45-minute session is almost at 1/3 distance, and the track becoming a little bit quieter now. More and more cars headed for the pits. Nico Müller, though, is still pushing hard, and the championship leader currently in 8th place. Looks like he might be about to improve upon that. Absolute best in the second sector. It's only a few hundredths quicker than Vittman's time through that second sector, and overall he's going to go into, well, second place, but it's exactly the same lap time as Marco Vittman, to within 1,000th of a second. But as usual, the rule is whoever posts the time first, if you're tied on times, they get put higher up on the leaderboard. So Marco Vittman and Nico Müller both with exactly the same lap times. Incredible, that, isn't it? 1 minute 48.113 seconds. And they are both just over a 10th quicker than Timo Glock, who set the early pace. He's third on a 1:48.272. You're looking at Robin Freins back into the pits now. And the driver second in the championship standings, the Dutchman in fourth, 1 minute 48.377, after his home victory last weekend.
To do it.
Okay, but the brake pedal itself is stiff?
It's quite okay now, yeah.
Okay, understood. Car balance?
Quite bad. Cannot load any axle front and rear. Entry on high speed, it's okay. If you have turn 5 entry, it's fine. The rear stability is fine. Entry of 12 is also fine. The first push lap is soon if I go on power, the rear snapped away from me all the time. Happens in turn 6, 8, turn 2, turn 3, turn 11.
Okay, anyway, just to inform you, the track is even on a lower grip to what we expect, because the lap time is really slow. It's a 1:48.1 from Whitman. We expected something a bit quicker than that.
Yeah, but the feeling I have, man, I cannot load any axle. Like the rear axle, I cannot load.
This is normal. This is low grip track. So now, do you think for the long run we keep this car balance, or you need more rear stability?
You got it away there again.
I said, do you want more support on the rear axle for the long run? Yes or no? You think it will degrade too much on the rear? Which axle is the most limiting one?
It's mechanically on power rear. Just on power. It's no downforce. You can put the wing up, but it doesn't have any effect, because on downforce 5 we are fine.
Okay, copy. Please put the screen down.
It's fascinating, isn't it, to be able to have the ability to drop in on these conversations between the drivers and their race engineers, listening to Robin Freins there, and the feedback between him and his race engineer, Michael Petit, at Team AB Sportsline. But that was somebody with a bit of previous experience of the Nurburgring. Not that Robin hasn't been here before, but on this Grand Prix version of the circuit, Michael saying, you know, this is a low grip track. It might not be the car. It might just be that everybody is struggling. After all, Robin is up there on the times in 4th place, only a couple of tenths down. But the feedback from Robin was that, well, I think they had...
From the tire warm-up, Nico, you felt it was still not ready for the first push lap?
I don't think the warm-up was the problem, no. It was just driving.
Copy.
Yes, the feedback from Robin, who I think had a bit of a brake issue early on. That was sorted out. The brakes were fine. The car was okay into corners, but the balance was not good. The mechanical grip was not good. He couldn't load the axle up. He couldn't, as in, the car wouldn't take it when he got heavy on the power. It started to move around on the exit to corners. That's where he felt he was losing out. Less detailed feedback in the conversation between Nico Müller and Felix Fechner, his race engineer, but it sounds like it wasn't a problem in how the tyres were warmed up, that Nico needs to find a bit more within himself within the driving. But it's not much more to find really, Nico, because you're quicker than anybody except for one man who's set exactly the same lap time as you. So Vittman quickest, Müller second, both with exactly the same lap time. Glock and Freins third and fourth. Jamie Green, good start to the weekend so far. 1 minute 48.511 seconds per fifth place. A moment for Fabio Scherer there on the replay. One of the rookie drivers this year, the Swiss, who just let the car run out a little bit wide there, but plenty of runoff and no real harm done. Remember last weekend, he was the cause of the red flag in race 2. One of the drivers that was out on slick tyres as the track looked like it was drying, and then the heavens opened and he got caught out, and a heavy impact for Fabio. Lots of damage to the car. He was okay, which was absolutely the most important thing, but out of the race. But Fabio Scherer has shown some real promising signs of pace in some of the events so far this year. It's a real steep learning curve in the DTM, and the level of competition is incredibly high, even for drivers that come into this with huge amounts of experience in other categories. It's not possible really to be fighting at the front in your first season of DTM, but certainly some promising signs for Fabio, and great news, isn't it, for Switzerland, that you've got these two drivers in the DTM now at this very high level, with Nico Müller, of course, at the very highest level, currently leading the championship. Truly international field with two South African drivers as well, both young guns, both impressive in the DTM this season. That race win, a huge boost. The first ever South African to take a race victory in the DTM, Sheldon Vanderlinder. Hugely proud moment for him, and I'm sure for all of his family and friends that have been supporting him on the way to this point in what's only really the beginning of what I think is going to be a glittering career for Sheldon. German drivers, of course, two British drivers this year with Jamie Green and Harrison Newey, another of the debutants, and for the first time ever a Polish driver with the great Robert Kubica in amongst us this year. He's currently in 13th place, not too far off the pace.
14, possibly 15 timed laps, because we gained a bit of time due to the abort of the first one.
But with Timo Glock, he's never had a race win in DTM at the Nürburgring. His best result is a 4th place finish a couple of years ago in 2018, and a 5th back in 2016. Drivers that have got a good record on the Nürburgring. Lucas Auer was a winner here in 2017.
To pass all laps, both long straights and then downhill to turn 8.
Lucas has also had 3 consecutive pole positions here as a Mercedes driver in 2015, 2016 and 2017. On board with the only man out on the circuit, Timo Glock, who's been keen to get on with things so far this weekend, hasn't he? And certainly set a good early pace with his opening lap. There to the left of the buildings where the commentary box is. Over the line, right in front of me goes Timo Glock.
For push to pass is start finish.
René Rast's also been a race winner here at the Nürburgring. 2 wins last year and... Sorry, 2 wins in 2018 and a win here last year. So 3 times in the last 2 visits to the Nürburgring he's taken race victories. And Marco Vittman's been a winner here as well, back in 2014 and 2016. But he has also been on the podium 4 other occasions, including, as I mentioned earlier, that 3rd place finish in one of the races here around the sprint version of the circuit back in 2019. 3 poles for Marco as well, the last of which came back in 2017. All looking very smooth and under control at the moment for Timo Glock. Lots more cars out on track now for what will be longer run pace here. It'll be interesting to see the gap, the difference here between sort of average longer run lap times and the single lap times, because at Assen, where the circuit and the surface was very quick, very grippy, but also quite detrimental to the tyres. They were at times lapping between 4 and 5 seconds a lap slower on race pace. I know the cars are heavier, I know they're trying to make the cars last longer. That was a big difference. I wouldn't think it's going to be anything like that here, even though it's a longer lap, a longer circuit. But we'll find out over the course of the next 5 or 10 minutes. Those cars out on track. Jonathan Aberdeen, I think the only one that's currently in the pit lane. Up through the gears. Just over 180 kilometres an hour before slowing the car down for the last turn. Accelerating out over the start-finish line. And Timo goes through with a time of 150.4.
He did a launch.
So that's just over 2 seconds clear. Timo Glock being warned or advised by his race engineer as well, just to watch out, somebody's about to come out of the pits and merge with the car through turn 1. Sheldon Vanderlinder out on the circuit now. His single lap pace put him in 11th position with a 149.1, just over a second behind the best time set by Vittman and Muller. But BMWs, 4 of them in the top 10 and 2 of them in the top 3. Vittman first, or equal first, and Glock in 3rd place. Yeah, so that lap from Timo Glock, 1 minute 50.4, was 2.2 seconds adrift of his best on single lap pace. So much closer to those times that you would expect to fall off, but we'll see how many laps he puts in. Drivers on a shorter lap at Assen putting in up to 20 laps in this second half of the free practice 1 session. There's going to be less laps here because it's a longer lap, but I would think they're still probably going to be looking at going most of them till towards the end of the session now. And getting in at least a dozen laps on the bounce on board with Sheldon Vanderlinder. 1 minute 51.5. So Muller's done a 150.7. That's the closest so far to Timo Glock's 1 minute 50.4 on longer run pace. Well, that wasn't a bad first attempt from Sheldon Vanderlinder. Also the 151s with him, Robin Freins did a 151.3. Interesting to note the point at which the tyres and the time start to go off. You get a printout of, well, not a printout, you get to view it online, the data from Vega timing of everybody's laps and everybody's sector times, and it's always good to look through that data in between free practice 1 and free practice 2 to just get a sense for how the drivers are looking in on race pace and at which point they might need to start to think about coming into the pits for their mandatory pit stop in the race, i.e. where do the tyres start to fall off. It can be quite dramatic. It can suddenly go from being a pretty decent lap time to really struggling. Great views on board with Sheldon Vanderlinder. In the pits is Fabio Scherer.
And then Fabio, you are missing entry speed in turn 5. Entry speed.
Copy.
Still only relatively new to racing is Fabio Scherer, still only 20 years of age. And
so Fabio, we just finished the repair. We put back the tire in and we can do a practice start at the end of the pit lane. And then you go for a long run up to the check red flag. So the car is just with 1 rear degree of rear wing on top of what you have.
Copy.
It's been single seaters for Fabio up to this point. The 20-year-old who's from Engelberg.
Maybe check the heel rest of the surround, because I think I fucked it now.
Heel rest, you mean? Okay. Is it fucked now, you say? You want to check it now?
No, it's drivable, but just for next session.
Copy, I take note of it, so you can do your practice start. Tire are hot, so no need for extra burnout.
So in words of slightly fewer syllables, Fabio Scherer saying, I might have damaged the tyre beyond repair there, but we'll go out and try it. A couple of seasons in German Formula 4 and some Italian Formula 4 racing for Fabio Scherer before we moved into the international stage in 2018, the FIA European F3 Championship, which he was a podium finisher, part season in that championship, but rather more successful in the races he did compete in 2019 and got onto the podium 7 times before stepping into DTM for the first time this year. So a big step up for him, but as I say, he's had some decent runs, not yet scored a point. The only driver yet to score a point in DTM 2020, but he's come close. He was 11th, just outside the points at the Lausitz-Ring. And qualified just outside the top 10 at Spa as well. On board with Marco Vittman then, whose last lap time was a 1 minute 49.996 on this longer run pace. Marco's the quickest so far in terms of lap time, which is looking good so far for both BMW and for Marco Vittman, you have to say. Making his way up now towards the Ravenol curve, the left-hander. Through turn 11, straight into the right-hander at turn 12 he'll go, through Bilstein curve up, and then beginning the uphill climb now, all the way up towards the chicane at Vidal chicane, through this hugely quick right-hander at Advanboga. Not even thinking about lifting there. And then the uphill run under braking allows you to slow the car down, allows you to brake even later through the left-right flick through the chicane. Short straight, then up towards the final turn. It's almost like a big sweeping hairpin, this. Doesn't quite come back on itself, but almost does. Get that exit right, because you've got a long straight then over the finish line and back down towards turn 1 at the Yokohama S, which really does come back on itself. It's one of the tightest first corners anywhere in international motorsport. And always a tight squeeze through this first corner, with lots of different race lines being taken at the start of races. Having been here in the past for a number of single-seater and Formula 3 races, I can tell you it's a case of hold your breath through there sometimes. So Marco Vittman, not quite as quick on that lap, but a 1 minute 50.951. He's been in the 149s though, the only driver to do that so far. You're riding on board with Robin Freins now. He's just making his way through turn 6 and towards the furthest point away. It's downhill here into the Dunlop curve, all the way over the front of the car. 6 gear, approaching that at 160 kilometers an hour. You go down to 3rd at one stage, back up through the gears now, 4th, 5th. Fantastic through here. Look at that through the Schumacher S's. And that's our first real view of what it feels like, a little bit of an insight into what it feels like to hang on to a DTM car through that left-right turn. The Schumacher S turn 10, fantastic, especially with the low-slung onboard camera on the front splitter of Robin's car. Real bravery. Racing drivers love a corner that is not easy flat out, but a corner that's flat out or close to flat out, but just at the point where it takes your breath away and you hang on to the car and you're not quite sure if it's going to stick, not quite sure if it's all going to go disastrously wrong. It's living on the edge, and that's what racing drivers love, those corners that provide a real challenge. Decent lap as well for Robin, 1 minute 50.7 on this longer run pace. Pretty much as quick as anybody out there. Last time around we had Vittman with a 150.4. We've had a 150.5 for Rockenfeller, 150.7s for Auer, who's celebrating his birthday today, and also 1 minute 50.7 for Jonathan Aberdeen. And also for Mick Muller, actually, 3 drivers in the 150.7s, and Freins, of course, who we just saw competing that, and ever so slightly quicker on a 150.699 was Loic Duval. So there's half a dozen drivers there on that last lap, all within less than a tenth of a second of each other. And it's a pretty long lap here, of over 5 kilometres. Just 14.5 minutes to go in the session. There is Philippe Eng looking for his first podium of the season. You can see how it's easy to go out wide through Yokohama S, through that first corner. Track just drops away through the line as well, sending way out wide like Mark Rockenfeller does. Drag it across to the right and then take the left-hander through turn 2, the first section of the Mercedes Arena. Turns 2, 3 and then 4, which lead then onto the back straight, and the circuit then speeds up. It's a very tight start to the lap through that first complex, following Mike Rockenfeller now, who's been putting in some really strong performances this year. Loves this place. This is where he'll perhaps look to get his first podium of the season here at the Nurburgring. He's currently in terms of the driver standings in 7th place, and he's had a couple of 4th place finishes, including one at Assen last time out, the other being in the first race of the season at Spa. That was his best weekend so far in terms of points. He was 4th and 5th in the 2 races in Belgium, and he's also been in the top 6 on 3 other occasions, twice at the Lausitz Ring and again at Spa. So points have been coming thick and fast for the 2013 champion. 52 points. He was overtaken, though, in terms of the point standings by Sheldon Vanderlinder, who took that victory at Assen and moved himself up into the top 6 of the points. Loic Duval, who led a lot of the first race at Assen, but ultimately wasn't quite able to hang on to it, although he very much held on to Robin Freins once Robin got past him with about 8 minutes to go. On the top 3, with Muller at the back of the train, all crossed the line within a second or so of each other in that first race, which was an interesting race, a very close race, and looked like that might be weather affected too, because there'd been a big downpour between the qualifying session and the race, but the track dried just in time to make slicks the obvious call at the start of that race, and then a very different story on the following day. And who knows what weather we'll get here. It's almost pointless looking at the weather forecast in this part of the world until just a couple of hours before each session, because it is so unexpected at times. So you're not going to see any changes really to the order on the left graphic there in terms of everybody's fastest lap times, and you're not likely to see any green sector times as in personal bests or purple sector times, because it was the first part of the session where everybody went for the quicker run, the single lap pace. It's now that they're trying the longer run pace, but it is generally around about 2 to 2.5 seconds away from their single lap pace. So nowhere near the gap that we had at Assen, where, as I say, it was up to 5 seconds at times to try and manage those tyres. But as we heard from some of the conversations between drivers and engineers, it's less grippy than they expected it to be. This is the start of the weekend. There have been a couple of sessions on track before DTM this morning, including the DTM Trophy, the new support series to DTM this year. But it's a pretty warm day. The track temperature will go up for this afternoon session. More and more rubber will be laid down. It should get grippier as the weekend goes on. So we would anticipate some faster lap times in this afternoon session. Interesting comparison there between the best laps of the top 2 in the standings so far. Not much between them, between Vittman and Muller. But whereas at, well, I think in the first free practice session at Assen, Marco looked okay, but as the weekend went on, as we got to qualifying, it became apparent that he hadn't got the car underneath him to really challenge at the very front of the field. But here, different story. He looks absolutely on it. I think he's always pretty much on it. It's just whether or not they got the car and the setup working well. But the RMG driver, looking like he's smooth, aggressive, but always in control. Great riding with him there as he makes his way through the Schumacher S's earlier on in the lap, going through the chicane. Coming up should be a pretty wild ride as well. He's just about to make his way through turn 12, Ad Van Bogen. This is easy flat out next, and then watch him when he gets to attack the Vido chicane very shortly. He's going to hit the brakes for the left right through turns 14, 15 and 16, and yeah, look at that. The car looks absolutely underneath him. His last lap time wasn't particularly good, a 1 minute 55.4. But didn't see what the cause of that was, whether there was a moment or perhaps some traffic. But that one's back on it, 1 minute 50.771. So he's pretty much, he did that a very high 1 minute 49 on his first lap since going back out. But he's still not that far away from the pace at the start of the session. The tyres seem to be holding up pretty well so far. I think his second lap, off memory, was a 1 minute 50.2, and his 1 minute 50.7s that he's lapping in pretty consistently now. On the same pace, actually slightly quicker than him at this stage though, Nico Muller, 1 minute 50.627. And a couple of other drivers going well. Sheldon Vanderlinder also in the 1 minute 50.6s, a 1 minute 50.688. So on that last lap, Muller was the quickest, Vanderlinder was second, and then Marco Vittman was third. Fourth was Robin Freins with a 1 minute 50.892. And I've done a disservice to René Rast there, because he also did a 1 minute 50.6, 1 minute 50.670. So not much between the likes of Vittman, Muller, Rast, Sheldon Vanderlinder and Vittman on that same sort of pace as well in the mid to high 1-minute 50s. And several other drivers in the low 1-minute 51s, including Glock, Auer, Habsburg, and some of the others a little bit slower than that as well. 152s for a number of drivers out there. On board with Robin Freins on the way into the final curve as he tackles that in third gear. Accelerates that now, already up to over 180 kilometers an hour. And that lap time for Robin Freins was a 151.484. So it now looks like after around about 7 laps, the tyres starting to go away, because Vittman did a 151 as well, and we're in the 150s. Freins is in the 151s. Green's in the 151s, albeit the low 1-minute 51s. Glock as well, 1-minute 51.5. Not yet Vanderlinder though. Managing the tyres well, 1-minute 50.9. Or Rast is on a slightly different sync to the rest of them. I don't think he's done quite as many laps yet, having left the pits a bit later, but a 1-minute 50.7. So Rast the quickest on the previous lap, but Vanderlinder, I think his tyres are a little bit older. Also very quick with a 1-minute 50.9. And then it's a low 151 for Vittman, 151.041. And then the rest of the, well, most of the rest of the top 6 are in the mid 151s. So Marco Vittman again looking good. Look at that. Hang on to it. There's not much room for error on the exit to the turn either. But great onboard view there through the Schumacher S's with Marco Vittman. Absolute commitment, but belief in what he's doing. And what you've got to do there is just pick your line. Pick your line and stick to it. There's no inputs, no excess input required into the steering there, because at those speeds the car will skip away from you. Throwing it over the curbs through the chicane. One more corner to go, just getting a little bit of wheel spin as he gets on the power. Unleashes close to 600 brake horsepower. Third gear through this right-hander at the end of the lap through the end curve, the Hyundai end curve, accelerating over the line. And Marco Vittman again back into the 150s, a 1-minute 50.893. Muller did a 150.6 though on that lap. And the only other driver to break the 151s on that lap was Robin Freins, 1-minute 50.929. You're on board with Nico Muller then, quickest out there at the moment, respective to the others on the current longer run pace that they are putting in. And also joint quickest on single lap pace with exactly the same lap time as you see on the screen there, on the graphic to the left of the picture, as Marco Vittman earlier in the session. But Vittman set the time first, which is why his name appears at the top for BMW. Engineers looking at data traces. I think I'd need a pretty long several-day course in that to try and understand how it all works out, how it all filters out.
Nico, push to pass and DRS for one more lap.
Okay, give it full beans for another lap then. Nico, see what you can do on this one. 150.5, got even quicker on the previous lap. We saw this at Assen. Isn't necessarily the quickest at the start of a long run, but my goodness, Nico Muller knows how to look after a tyre, look after a car, and put in consistent lap times. And he's able to keep better pace at the end of a long run than some of his closest rivals. So again, quickest man on the track last time around with a 1-minute 50.5. Vittman was second with a 1-minute 50.8 and a 150.9 for Freins. 150.8 for René Rast as well.
Too close to our...
Copy, it's 2 more laps after this. 2 more laps after this, so keep pushing.
Okay, getting a bit too close to Lucas Auer then, says Nico Muller, reports back on the radio. So this one isn't going to be necessarily a great lap, but it's not being held up by Lucas yet. Lucas is on a push lap at the moment as well, celebrating his 26th birthday this weekend. The multiple DTM race winner from St. Johann, the Austrian. And you can see just ahead, BMW driver for the first time this season, having and several years with DTM as a Mercedes driver, coming into the DTM back in 2015. His best season coming in 2017 when he led the championship early on, got 3 wins that year, including one here at the Nurburgring, but finishing 6th place in the end in 2017. He's been at the top 10 in the championship for his last 3 years involvement with DTM though. He's in the top 10 here at the moment, 9th quickest. Bit of frustration you sense there coming from Nico Müller. Come on, I'm right in his bumper, he's not moving out of my way, but Lucas Auer's got his own run to think of here as well. Lucas did a 151.5, Müller a 150.4, so he didn't get held up. That was quicker. Well, seemingly didn't really get held up on that lap. 1 minute 50.4, quickest lap for a while. These last 3 laps have all got quicker than the previous lap as well. So really, the tyres seem to be holding up well here on these longer runs. Certainly for Nico Müller. Again, he's the quickest. Only one other driver who I think has done less laps than him. He's certainly done less laps overall. René Rast, 1 minute 50.801, less in this session. And then you got Vittman's fallen into the 151s again, a 151.2, 151.5 for Auer. So he's one of the quicker drivers out there in the top 4, just not as quick as the reigning championship leader. Back on board with Marco Vittman. 151.079 last time out. So times have fallen off a bit, but not much, not hugely. Still within 9/10 of a second of how quickly he was going at the start of the session. On board now with Marco as he makes his way out of the Mercedes Arena complex down towards the left-hander at turn 5, attacking that one, attacking the curb. Quickly back, briefly back on the throttle, then slowing the car down for the right-hander at turn 6, and then down this fantastic run downhill now into the Dunlop curve. And there he comes into the right-hander, hairpin. Get the exit right here because you begin to climb uphill now. And about to tack the Schumacher S is the first part of it. Looks far more spectacular with the onboard camera, but that is a great piece of tarmac. And fantastic they were able to use the full Grand Prix version of the circuit and employ that corner in this weekend's races. It's going to be absolutely spectacular when they go through there in qualifying tomorrow morning. As ever.
Copy.
Oh, huge lock up there for Robin Fry to go straight on. So Robin at the chicane, missing the braking point, and straight on for the driver's second. We're on board with him now, I'm sure. Is he going to abort the lap? Go in? No, he's staying out actually. Well, he's found the braking point limits, you have to say, on the way into that chicane.
Flat spot.
You're not kidding.
Final lap, last lap.
Yeah, not kidding. Flat spot, Robin. Crikey, he dragged the Hankook rubber about 40 metres across the tarmac. No way of making the corner. Luckily, an escape road there. So one more lap for Robin Fryens, but he's got a flat spot and some vibration to deal with now. 151.6, even though he had the moment. It wasn't terrible. The checkered flag is now out. And a 149.9 for Nico Müller on his last lap through. So that bodes very well indeed for the points leader. He's looking for his first win since the 3rd race of the season. When we get to round 9 tomorrow, which will be the halfway stage in the championship, which will have the first race tomorrow. 9 of 18 races will have been completed. Points and podiums will be coming thick and fast for Nico Müller, but he definitely would like to get a couple more wins under his belt. So a 151.0 on that lap. But a high 1 minute 49 for Müller. That was the headline, because that means that right at the end of his long run, with only a lap after that, Nico Müller has been able to go quicker than anybody else. Right, this is Robin Fryens. This is where he locked up coming into the chicane on the previous lap. Let's hold on. And of course, he's never going to make the same mistake twice. So Robin Fryens through,
Robin,
no
you
problem.
will see the checkered flag now.
Timo Glock has just taken the checkered flag in front of the commentary box, and here comes Robin Fryens to complete his first competitive session now on the track, the free practice session. Through he goes. Lucas out just behind him. Marco Vittman has crossed the line as well. And for Robin, a 1:53.5 slow lap, as you'd expect with the flat spot. But Nico Müller looking very good there, equal to Marco Vittman on single lap pace, and also, I reckon, on long run pace, looking the strongest there, and keeping the times going. His last but one lap in the high 1:49s. Only one other driver got into the 1:49s in that second part of the session, and that was Marco Vittman, and that was on his first lap out, not his last but one lap. So very impressive indeed, but a good start absolutely for Marco Vittman, looking pretty strong on that long run pace as well, and very good on single lap pace. They need to improve in qualifying on single lap pace, and it shows they might be able to do that. Marco Vittman then with a 1:48.113, and Nico Müller setting exactly the same lap time but later. Second place, Timo Glock third with a 1:48.272, and then we had Robin Freins fourth, 1:48.377. Fifth for Jamie Green, 1:48.511 after a pointless weekend at Assen. Sixth for Loic Duval, 1:48.643. Seventh for Mike Rockenfeller, 1:48.722. And then Philip Eng was eighth, 1:48.829. Lucas Auer on his birthday was ninth, 1:48.980. Ferdinand Habsburg 10th, just 7 thousandths of a second behind him. Vanderlinder was 11th, but the long run pace looked very good. Aberdeen was 12th, Kubica was 13th, Scherer was 14th, Newey 15th, and Rast 16th, because he never really got the chance to put a lap in. Had some sensor issues, it sounded like, from the team radio transmission. But not to worry, because he was looking pretty good on his longer run pace. Practice starts now for the drivers, which they'll do at the end of the second free practice session this afternoon as well. Chance to run through the procedure of getting a DTM car off the line. Lucas Auer to the left, Philip Eng to the right. Get their BMWs underway, seemingly with no trouble. And the championship leader is going to go next, Nico Müller. Red lights come on, all 5 of them, and the millisecond they go out, drop the clutch, and underway you get. Onboard camera with Nico Müller. Hard to say if they could start or not without being able to compare them to somebody else. René Rast lines up next. And it's Harrison Newey, wasn't it? I think alongside him in the number 10 car. Hold the gas on the throttle, on the clutch, let it go. Like a better getaway for Rast than for Müller. Maybe just seemed to bog down a little bit. Marco Vittman's turn now. He'll be very happy to end the first free practice session with his name at the top of the times. He gets underway, and alongside him, getting a slightly better start, is Glock. That's the tight run into the first corner. Got Freins, Habsburg, Vanderlinder and Aberdeen to go as the last 4. Red lights out now. There's the view on board. A little bit of a bog as it shifted from first to second gear. And then you can see the track descends as well. It's actually a downhill run into that first corner. It drops more and more as you get to the apex of the turn as well. Vanderlinder and Aberdeen off the line well. Better than Vanderlinder, that's for sure. Very good start that from Jonathan. We'll get to the first corner well ahead. So we'll have some super slow-mos now of the top 3 in the first free practice session. Timo Glock, good start to the weekend, 1:48.272 seconds. And then in second place, but with exactly the same lap time as the only driver ahead of him on the list, Nico Müller, 1:48.113, and very impressive long run pace as well for the Swiss driver. But a real boost for Marco Vittman and for BMW at the start of the weekend. 1:48.113 for him as well. The name at the top of the times. Free practice 2 is coming up later on this afternoon at 4:30 local time. That will be a slightly shorter 30-minute session here at the Nurburgring. Hope you enjoyed our coverage of the first free practice session here. We'll be back with you later on. From me, Chris Hartley, and the team, thanks for watching. We'll speak to you later on for free practice 2. Bye for now.